I'm here to welcome you. I think these panel members are here as part of their own entrepreneurial spirit, their own companies, but they love this city as well. And they know the spirit of this city. It's one of innovation, one that invites peoples and the views, and then meshes them up with old tradition to see if we can make an even better San Francisco for more people. My fellow collaborator, Board President David Chu, is here tonight, Scott Wiener, and then we have two other supervisors who may be coming later, Supervisor Jane Kim and Mark Farrell, who might join us a little later. And we're all part of, I think, the initial group of policymakers at City Hall who want to hear out ideas and views of this new economy, this collaborative consumption economy, a shared economy, one that we're very interested in because it has aspects that have already piqued our interests about our environment, about how to use less and do more with, how to improve life for more people, how to make an expensive city more affordable to more people, how to utilize the strengths of a city as a great tourist city, but maybe not that affordable to too many people, and how we can get more folks to come and experience the wonder of the city. And then hopefully maybe they make their stake here. Well, these panel members have decided to make their stake here. They've risked reputation, maybe small amounts of money, because if they had a lot of money, they may not have had to start this. But they've also, I think, done it for the right reasons. They want to experience this city in a very different way, but one that I think is in the tradition of San Francisco, and it certainly is reflective of mine, welcoming more people here to share in this economy, and hopefully then, for the right reasons, we create more jobs. Get more entrepreneurs involved in the success and the richness of this city. I've often said this city can be the city for the 100%. That is, everybody can have a chance to fulfill their dreams and make sure that they can have a stable economy for themselves or for their family. I think we're on the verge of discussing things that would invite other members of our city family, our department heads that work in the tax section or in planning or in land use, to be involved with a discussion, an ongoing discussion that would potentially invite and open up our economy and modernize it even further. I think we're at a task where, quite frankly, a year ago, for example, David Chu and I didn't know what the outcome might be, except that we were in fear that a company called Twitter might leave our city and that thousands of jobs would leave us behind. So we took a little risk and suggested that we might be able to revamp our tax code for the benefit of job creation. And little did we know a year later that that invitation has caused over 125 companies to locate themselves in our city, creating thousands of more jobs, creating an atmosphere and an environment that would be welcoming of the new economy, technology, and innovation, to reinforce what we've been saying, and I think it's real. We're not just saying we're the innovation capital. We are the innovation capital of the world with your help and with your involvement. And we would like to have the rest of the city catch up and be part of it as well. And we think we can have that conversation with at City Hall, but we'll need your help. We'll need you to also represent the new industries, as these companies are here today, to keep that dialogue and that collaboration at a high level going with us. Because it's that ongoing dialogue, just like the one that we're leading already about a new tax structure for the city that doesn't punish the inventiveness that we want to have in the city. So I'd like to just open with that introduction. Welcome all of you here. I think you're going to see and hear an exciting introduction of all these new companies and the panel discussions that we have, but they're going to raise questions that we don't have the answers yet. But I do believe we have the spirit in this city to welcome solutions with your involvement. And we'll have the ability to do this online as well as in these forums, and that I'll be part of this ongoing discussion because I want to see all of you interact with the city and make sure that it is reflective of what you believe the city to be, an open society, one that is inviting for new ideas, and one that our policymakers, along with the mayor, can engage in with you on an ongoing basis. So thank you for being here, and thank you to Spur again. Thank you very much.
And this turnout, I think, shows how significant this is to the future of the city. We were with a smaller group right before this, and one thing that I stressed and that I'll stress to you is that San Francisco is a city that we have a dichotomy going on where we are in many ways a cutting edge city in terms of technology or food or transportation or all sorts of things where we're really ahead of the curve, and we attract a lot of people here like you who I think are forward thinking and want to try to do things in a different and more innovative way. We're also a really old school city, and its change here is really challenging. And for those of us at City Hall, and David Chu and I talk about this a lot, when we're trying to do things differently, you can get a lot of reflexive pushback. Whether you're talking about putting car sharing on streets, or whether you're talking about changing zoning to be able to create new types of housing to make the city a little bit more affordable and inclusive. You have those kinds of difficult conversations. And so much of this is about really educating the city as a whole, from all generations, from all perspectives, that where we're going right now in San Francisco, in a lot of ways in terms of our transportation system, our housing policies, it's not always very sustainable. And that if we want it to be sustainable, if we want to remain a cutting edge and diverse city that draws all sorts of people here, we're going to have to change. And we're going to have to consider new ways of doing things that maybe a year or two ago we may not have been comfortable thinking about. And so there's a big education process that has to occur. And I know we're all going to work together to make sure that that happens and that we can move in the right direction. I look forward to that work. Thank you.
I wanted to join my colleague Scott Wiener and the mayor in assuring all of you, our current generation of entrepreneurs, that we're looking forward to working with you hand in hand to figure out how we create San Francisco, not just as the capital of innovation, but the capital of the sharing economy. I say this as someone who, for 9 years before I joined the Board of Supervisors, I actually started what was a Web 1.0 company. And I know that part of what makes our city so special is that every single one of you has ideas that are not only going to change our city, but truly going to change the world. Just so you know, our mayor is responsible for managing the 50+ executive branch departments that will be interfacing with many of the substantive policy areas that you impact. My colleague Scott and I, along with my 9 other colleagues, we're responsible for legislating and frankly figuring out how we as a city adapt to the new technologies that you have, which frankly are changing the way that, as Time Magazine recently said, changing the way we all live. So I want you to know, one thing we like to say at City Hall, and this has been always true about our city, is as goes San Francisco, oftentimes so goes the rest of the country, and as goes the rest of the country, so goes the world. And I really believe that we are starting something very special today that is going to do that for our entire planet. So thank you very much for being here. Looking forward to working with you.
I want to echo the comments of David Chu. I think this is a big moment. I want to celebrate, and Mayor's Lee's working group, the Sharing Economy Working Group, I think can make a great city even greater. And as usual, other cities are watching San Francisco, and what we do here will influence them, and that could change the world. So, but something, there are a lot of questions too. So, and the sharing economy waits to be shaped by policy. It's kind of in its adolescence, and so now this is a kind of transformative moment, and it's waiting to be shaped by policy, but for whose benefit? Now, we at Shareable believe that it should be shaped for the benefit of as many people as possible, as broadly as possible, as the mayor alluded to, and especially for those who need it the most. And we also need new regulation, and not simply just application of the old. Otherwise, I think the sharing economy will fail to realize its promise to alleviate extreme wealth inequality and resource depletion, 2 things that I think really are the biggest threats to our society. So I'm going to open the panel by talking more about what's at stake and give you a brief, it's a very high-level brief of the sharing economy, and it's from Shareable Magazine's perspective. There is no sort of textbook definition of the sharing economy. And then we'll begin the panel discussion which will last for 45 minutes or an hour, however long you want it to last. But before I dive in here, raise your hand if you're familiar with at least one of these books. Okay, I highly recommend all of them. And the one on the end, Share or Die, is Shareable's new book, which is coming out in May. And the title, Share or Die, I don't recommend that for marketing for any kind of company. But for a cause, we are really trying to push the boundary and sort of break trail so that these companies can follow. That's our perspective about what's at stake. On a planet of finite resources, growing population, and also growing per capita consumption, it should be obvious that we should be talking about sharing. This is a gigantic hole in our public dialogue, and I think that this panel and the working group and San Francisco and hopefully our book can fix that. And I think, honestly, let's see how this works. We face disaster unless we simultaneously reduce resource consumption and raise 2 billion people out of poverty. This is, I think, the challenge that we have in the 21st century. And the growth economy, the one we're moving out of, hopefully, can't do that. It's what got us into the jam we're in now. And the jam we're in now is, let's see, I mean, you're probably very familiar. This is like a litany that you hear all the time now, but we're using 40% more resources annually than the Earth can replenish, so we're draining the principle of our natural capital. There's been, I don't know, 15 or something years of sustainable development and development of new green technologies, yet I believe in 2011 we had the largest output of carbon ever. Inequality has reached epic proportions here and other places around the world. In the United States, the richest 1% own 38% of all wealth, while the bottom 90% hold 73% of all debt. So we're sort of wiping out the planet, and the public is left holding the bag. So we definitely need something completely different. And putting the moral outrage aside for a second, this situation also puts cities at great risk. And we've only got last year a taste of the disruption that's possible with the numerous revolutions that broke out. And I think they make clear that the crisis is going to land hardest in cities. In fact, cities, I see them, borrowing some language from complexity theory. I see them poised at a critical state. 50%, it's kind of a new condition, too, that we have, too, a new situation. 50% of global population is urban, is young, and is connected by mobile phones. And the young are the hardest hit here. In Spain, the unemployment rate for young adults is something around 50%. In the United States, college graduates are leaving school with an average of $24,000 in student loan debt into a labor market for their age group that hasn't been that as bad as it is today since, I think, the Depression or the 40s. So I think the smallest thing can trigger a crisis right now. It's kind of a powder keg. But on the other hand, while it's a situation possibly for breakdown, along with this crisis is a powerful new set of tools that have arrived alongside. And so that breakthrough is also possible. So we have a decision to make. And so let me talk about the sharing economy and how it plays into this. And we define it very broadly. We see the sharing economy as a shift from a top-down factory model of society to a peer-to-peer network model of society. And while large corporations further consolidate wealth and power in the old system, the emerging economy, sharing economy is democratizing wealth and decision-making in new networked modes of production, consumption, and governance. And the sharing economy is driven by economic, environmental, and social crisis, but also, like I alluded to earlier, new technologies, a new culture of sharing, and also a new generation, the first one, raised on the net, where sharing is part of their value system, kind of first nature. And Shareable reports on a wide variety of these innovations driving the sharing economy, including car sharing, member-owned cooperatives, open source software, co-working, and the collaborative consumption companies that are here with us today. Now, while the legacy institutions, many of them are failing to serve us, have lost their capacity to serve in some cases, or just lost their credibility, all of these type of innovations, all these shareable type of innovations are on the rise. But they're helping in a kind of a different way, not through sort of centrally controlled, one-size-fits-all solutions. Instead, they increase access to resources locally and globally through market-driven and volunteer-based platforms that unleash the creativity of citizens to create and exchange value directly with each other, very adaptable to local conditions. With this economic shift, there's also a cultural shift. I mean, we're rediscovering that the good life is about the basic things like health and family, community, purposeful work, artistic expression, spiritual life, and civic engagement. And we're discovering that access better supports the pursuit of happiness than ownership. So let me talk about give a couple examples and the potential impact to give a feel of how this could be a fix. And I think car sharing is a really good thing to look at. It's the archetype of the sharing economy, and it's been around for a while, and some good research has come out recently also. And so a UC Berkeley study showed that one shared car replaces 9 to 13 owned cars, and that 50% of households who joined to get access to a car who didn't have access to a car, and that the total household vehicle count in the sample size, it was about 6,000, the study by UC Berkeley, dropped by 50%. Another study found that city car share members, the new ones, when they joined, they drove 47% less. And this statistic really blows me away. If San Francisco was able to reduce car ownership in the city by 15,000 units, it would keep an estimated $127 million in the local economy annually. Only 20% of the money that people pay towards their cars, all the expenses, and it's the second highest household expense. It's over $8,000 a year for the average car owner. Only 20% stays in the local economy. And I did a kind of back-of-the-envelope calculation. If San Francisco reduced car ownership by 50% from 400,000 to 200,000, that we'd keep an estimated $2.5 billion in the local economy annually and reduce carbon emissions by 1 million metric tons. And we could have, right in this room, we have Getaround and we have relay rides. We could have the most powerful economic development sort of program right here. And what if the entire economy of San Francisco was built around access like car sharing? And that's exactly what's happening. That's what these entrepreneurs are doing. But the sharing economy isn't just about new ways to consume. It's also about new ways to produce, so it can be not only a platform for micro-entrepreneurship, but also for creating jobs here locally, organically. New technology, shared access models, and online marketplaces have dramatically lowered the barriers to resources needed to create products, offer services, and launch companies. Tools that only large companies could afford just a few years ago are now accessible to the masses. So San Francisco's tech shop is just one example. And so for a small monthly fee, you get access to instruction, $1 million worth of machine tools, and also access to contract manufacturing to bring prototypes to market. So, and also consider the case of member-owned and controlled cooperatives, which there are many in the Bay Area. The UN actually has declared 2012 the International Year of the Cooperative because of their proven ability to give everyday people control over their economic destiny. We have a vibrant co-op scene here in the Bay Area, but San Francisco can do more to support them and grow jobs through the cooperative development model. And so one of the reasons, or maybe the main reason why we're here today, is because this new economic mode calls for new policies. So Shareable initiated a 20-part series last year called Policies for a Shareable City. So I encourage you to check it out to kind of see the landscape of the implications policy-wise for this new economy coming in and the different services. And you know, some of the things that we covered are like how parking and zoning regulations, you know, don't really account for peer-to-peer car sharing and also parking sharing, and companies like Getaround and Relay Rides, and how hotel regulations are outmoded for such disruptive and new businesses like Airbnb, and how food and restaurant regulation doesn't fully accommodate the really amazing kind of peer-to-peer food scene here in San Francisco. So at Shareable, we believe that it would be a mistake to just hastily apply 20th century regulation to new 21st century, a new 21st century economy. And we think that, as Mayor Lee said, you know, more research and public dialogue are needed, which is why the Sharing Economy Working Group and our panel today make so much sense. And I just want to add one more thing, though, before we go to the panel discussion. So these facts, maybe they're intellectually stimulating, maybe even somewhat inspiring, but they don't really speak, honestly, to my heart. This isn't what brought me to the sharing economy. What I was after was a new way to live, in a way that I felt that I could live fully. And what excites me about sharing is how it changes everyday life for the better, how it empowers us. And with this economic shift in these new businesses and new ways of creating and exchanging value is also a new cultural narrative is emerging, and it's replacing one. It's replacing an old legacy narrative that is pretty toxic, that told us that the good life comes from shopping and competition, that said that we could be free by being free from each other. And you know, we're leaving this narrative, we're leaving this story because it's a total disaster. It has pushed us to the brink of extinction. It's enslaved us with debt, and you know, also it's just deadly boring, and also it's spiritually empty. But there's a new story being born. It's being born here in San Francisco, and it's one where the more you contribute to the common good, the more you're respected. Where the better you behave in community, the more access to wealth that you have. Where we're each other's hosts, our guides, our teachers, our cooks, our funders. Where instead of judging each other, we help each other realize our greatest potential, and where we open our worlds to each other. And through doing that, we are liberated. We find freedom through our relationships. And I've lived both of these stories, and the old one, almost broke my spirit, and the sharing story has saved me. And so let's continue the discussion about how we can bring more people into that story. Thank you.
And just a little plug for myself and my team. We launched the Mayor's 2012 Innovation Portfolio just a couple of weeks ago with TechCrunch. And if you want to learn more, go to innovation.sfgov.org. And we're looking for volunteers. I have a very small team, very little budget, actually no budget, which I'm really proud of. So come join my team. I'm bootstrapping things, I guess, in many ways. If you think about it, cities are the original sharing platform. You know, we manage parking through parking meters like SF Park. We manage books through public libraries. We manage our natural resources through parks. And so cities have played this role, and I think it's really fitting that we're having this conversation here in San Francisco at SPUR, a urban public policy planning group. And it's great to see so many people in part of this dialogue and so much of our city leadership being part of this conversation as well. I'm really proud, and I think it's pretty awesome that we are one of the first cities, I think the only city, that has put together a working group around the sharing economy. We recognize that we're the epicenter here in San Francisco, and we've got a role to help nurture this emerging space, and I think there's just a lot of value to be created here. So with that, I'm really excited to be part of this panel and seeing all of these great people next to me.
Thanks, Jay. And so what we're doing here is the people on the panel are going to tell us about their companies.
Vayable is a community marketplace for travel experiences. Anybody can offer their services to others as a guide, offering tours, sailing trips on the bay, cooking classes. We have enabled tourism to access parts of the city that it had never before accessed, driving dollars back to communities in the mission, for instance, restoring murals, or to the Tenderloin. So we launched in 2011. We've been going about a year, and we're really proud to be launched here in San Francisco and really growing the platform here.
TaskRabbit is an online marketplace where people can go to outsource small jobs and tasks to others in their neighborhood. So if you need dry cleaning picked up or groceries delivered, you can post that job on TaskRabbit. And one of our over 1,000 active TaskRabbits here in San Francisco will get real-time alerted, and then you're able to get matched with them. These TaskRabbits go through an extensive vetting process that include an online application, a video interview, a series of background checks, and a training program before they're activated on the site. And something we're really passionate about is this idea of micro-entrepreneurship, the fact that we've created over 1,000 jobs for people here in San Francisco to be their own bosses, set their own schedules, say how much they want to get paid and what they're good at and what they want to do. And so we're proud to be here, part of the sharing economy, and hearing from you guys as well. Thank you.
AirBnB, like my colleagues here, is an online community marketplace where residents of San Francisco, for example, can list their homes, their primary residences, occasionally for rent. Whenever they're out of town, for example, I'm traveling for work next week and plan on listing my apartment for rent to a visitor. And these hosts, we call them, in San Francisco and in the 19,000 cities where folks use our service throughout the world, use this income to afford increasing costs of living here, whether it's paying off your mortgage or rent in my case, or for expendable income to, in some cases, start a new business. The travelers who use Airbnb are looking for a different experience than a hotel. We have hosts in San Francisco in every single neighborhood in the city who offer a wide variety of experiences that are authentic. These hosts take pride in being really unofficial ambassadors of their neighborhoods, and visitors enjoy that experience. They stay on average 5 nights, which is twice as long as the average hotel guest, and enjoy patronizing local businesses in the neighborhoods and experiencing all the city has to offer.
As Neil mentioned in his presentation, we're a marketplace for peer-to-peer car sharing. We founded the company in 2009 as part of a graduate studies program called Singularity University, where we were challenged to come up with an idea that could impact 1 billion people within 10 years. We believe that we're addressing a problem that we call car overpopulation. There's 1 billion cars on the planet, 250 million cars in the US that sit idle 92% of the time. And these cars cause a whole host of problems, from congestion in our cities to the hole they burn in your pocketbooks, because most people have to pay $8,000 a year to own a car. We all own a car that sits there. And I'm very happy to see many of our members in the audience tonight who share their cars and make on average $300 a month. And that's a significant amount of money that can offset expenses and be put into the local economy. We believe that we're addressing a few key issues in our city here in San Francisco, and we're very proud to be here. We chose to launch in San Francisco because we felt like this was the place to start the sharing economy, the sharing revolution. We have about 10,000 cars signed up across the country. We're currently available in 4 markets: San Francisco, San Diego, Portland, and Austin. We're very lucky to have good backing from VCs and angels in the community here. And a little bit about how it works, in case you want to sign up. You can do that on your smartphone right now. As a car owner, you would go to the website and you can list the car that you want to share. You have complete control over who you want to share it with. So you will get requests, and you can decide if it's convenient to share at that time or if you want to share with that person. You can even choose just to share with friends or neighbors. And we provide the insurance during the rental period. So it's completely covered. There's absolutely nothing to worry about. In fact, we were very proactive in addressing the public policy issues with being innovative by launching a campaign to address this at the state level in 2010. We got a law passed here in California, AB 1871, and it's continuing to go to new states, which we're very excited about. And we are launching more cities this year. So basically, you'll see this in more areas. But the neat part about what happens with Getaround is it's building community. It's enabling people near each other to know who they live next to and to help each other out. I think that's a common theme we've heard just in the introductory remarks. We are also helping the environment, because this takes cars off the road. It means less people have to own cars, which I think is, as a car-free, never having owned a car, I think is a very good thing. It lets me live a healthier lifestyle. And I am excited to be on this panel, and I'll hand it back to Neil.
Thanks, Jessica. And I just want to say that I was putting together a presentation recently where I was putting like logos of companies in the sharing economy on a map near our office. We're down at Hub Soma, a co-working place, and there are about 20 co-working places in San Francisco. But I counted something like 25 sharing economy companies that just were sort of like in my neighborhood. And you know, on Shareable, there are new companies being launched practically every week. So there is this huge sort of upsurge. So this is just a small sample, some of the leaders that are here in San Francisco. And Jay, going back to you, so why don't you give us a little bit of the background on the sharing economy working group and how you think it could benefit San Francisco, including underserved communities?
Sure. I think it is very historic that we are being thoughtful and looking forward and shaping these policies. So our Mayor Lee, along with Board of Supervisor President David Hsu and Supervisor Mark Farrell, Jane Kim, and Scott Wiener, announced this first ever sharing economy working group. And the idea is to look at comprehensively the issues that are at play, whether they're policy issues, regulatory issues, as well as understand the benefits of the sharing economy, whether they're environmental or economic. There's we can see that with all of the companies here. There's tremendous value to our society. So it's really getting ahead of the curve so that we're not applying outdated regulatory rules to a very new and novel approach. And when you think about it, our legislation, when we wrote them back in who knows when, didn't imagine some of these companies here. You know, who would have thought that there's peer-to-peer car sharing, or that people are sharing their experiences and their local knowledge through Vayable? I think it's really, really transformative, and I think we have a role to play from a City Hall perspective to nurture and understand the space better and to help resolve some of those tensions.
So Jay, what's next for the working group?
So it's comprised of department heads from the agencies that are directly impacting the space, so planning, fire, police, so on and so forth. And so what we're going to do is actually kind of break up. This is obviously a huge space. We're covering cars, we're covering people, micro-entrepreneurship. And so it's actually trying to break it up into meaningful pieces and then having some working groups around those smaller pieces, whether it's peer-to-peer car sharing and parking or micro-entrepreneurship, and then inviting all of you and all of the companies to understand the challenges that we face and how we should modernize our regulatory environment to reflect what's this greatness that's happening.
So Molly, let's chat with you a little bit. There was a city hearing last week about applying hotel tax to Airbnb rentals, and so please tell us about the hearing. How did it come up, and what happened there?
The tax collector called a hearing to discuss the applicability of the transient occupancy tax, otherwise known as the hotel tax, to short-term rentals and operators, including website companies. We, of course, were concerned about this tax and its applicability not only to Airbnb, the company, but also to our community. And our community was quite concerned as well and showed up in great numbers at the hearing. Our main concern is, as San Franciscans, I know we vote regularly to increase our own taxes. I don't think any of us are completely opposed to taxes, but our concern was that this tax was written, this code was written in 1961, long before the sharing economy existed, the internet, and this new thing that we call Airbnb. And we want to make it clear that something that was written for corporate hotels and their guests should not be applied to something that's entirely new, to permanent residents of San Francisco who are occasionally renting out their couch or their bedroom to a visitor, with whom, by the way, they form great lasting friendships quite often. And what we asked for at the hearing was merely that the entire city family take the time to sit down and think about whether these existing laws should apply to this new activity, or whether perhaps we should create new policies and regulations that would apply more appropriately to this activity. And we really look forward to tackling that issue with the working group going forward. I'd estimate we've had roughly about 40 hosts, Airbnb hosts from San Francisco came, probably more than that. Many of them testified. It was an incredibly moving experience. I don't think I've ever seen a city hearing that was quite that emotional. People who are using this income to pay their property taxes if they own their home, to pay off their mortgages, to pay their increasing rents. Our company was founded by our co-founders, Brian Chesky and Joe Gebbia, who could not afford their increasing rent, and so they blew up an air mattress in their living room and rented it out and were able to make rent that month. This is an incredibly important source of income for our hosts, and if we're taxing it at 15%, we need to do so thoughtfully.
And so what was the treasurer's view? Like, how is it different from Airbnb's view?
That's a good question. We don't know what the treasurer's view is.
Okay.
That's why we would love the treasurer to join the working group and to sit down and discuss this collaboratively. By the way, not just with me, but we'd really love our community to have seats at the table. I'm looking out at several of our hosts here in the audience who are really interested in this topic and would like their voices to be heard, to explain what are they willing to pay? What are they capable of? They don't have the same resources that a corporate hotel does to collect and remit a tax monthly because they're not running a business. This is something that's done occasionally, in my case, probably 2 weeks a year. So again, we don't know what the treasurer and the tax collector are thinking about this, and we look forward to speaking with them and having a thoughtful, collaborative conversation, no pun intended.
So let's hear from the other entrepreneurs. Let's go down the line and see how are your services rubbing up against laws and regulation here in San Francisco?
The city doesn't have regulations as far as licenses and certifications required for tour guides, which means that it already is very open. This is different from the regulations in New York City, for instance, which is another market that we're in. And so we're really looking forward to allowing San Francisco to lead the way and really set this precedent, and by showing the impact that our platform can have. We are also really concerned with the tax issue as well. So far, the tax code's really segmented largely for personal taxes and business taxes. And the sharing economy presents a really nuanced situation where individuals are not businesses themselves, but they are enjoying a new stream of income. So we're really interested in having that conversation in a way where we can use this new economy to benefit the city, as well as individuals themselves who are proactively taking entrepreneurship in their own hands to leverage their own resources and knowledge to supplement their income.
What we're looking for is to really partner with the city and generate more awareness around what we do and how not only consumers but small businesses can get involved in the TaskRabbit community. We currently have a lot of small businesses in town that are utilizing the TaskRabbit network as a delivery force or an on-demand labor force, and particularly with seasonal businesses that get really busy around graduation time or the holidays, and they don't want to go out and have to hire, a bunch of full-time employees just for a month or two of work. They're able to utilize the TaskRabbit network to sort of scale up and down. Another use case we see very often is for deliveries. There's a great cupcake shop in the marina you guys might know called Susie Cakes that utilizes TaskRabbit to get her deliveries out of cupcakes and pies and goodies. And in that scenario, what's interesting is these TaskRabbits are using their own vehicles to do the deliveries, to park around the city, typically for a quick 5-minute stop. And so one of the things that we've been brainstorming with the city about is there some sort of collaborative consumption parking pass or sharing economy parking network. And I know Jessica has some thoughts on this as well for Getaround. But there's something to consider, I think, in that area as you have this network of people out running around doing these deliveries and working with small businesses, and how can we make it easier for these small businesses to thrive while using a network like TaskRabbit?
We're really eager not just to deal with the problems that ancient regulations present, but also help the city work together on opportunities. There are enormous opportunities that Airbnb presents to the city. For example, with the America's Cup, it is quite clear that tourism is one of the most important economic activities that's going on in San Francisco. And there's great concern, particularly by neighborhood groups, that that economic activity is not going to reach the farther out neighborhoods in this city during the America's Cup. We would love to work with the city family to encourage America's Cup visitors and locals. You don't have to be a tourist from Italy. You can be from Berkeley, like myself, to go out and experience all that the city has to offer in all of the various neighborhoods. And we look forward to pursuing some of these opportunities and shared interests with the city.
So with peer-to-peer car sharing, we're lucky to be part of a industry that's addressed these things in the past 5 to 10 years. So we have great leaders like City Car Share and Zipcar that have led the way and fought the battles on car sharing is not car rental. And it's different. It's a different activity. It has different benefits. It's a different use case. But at the same time, we're peer-to-peer car sharing. And so we are working proactively to have conversations, to educate people, and to really understand how it is different even from car sharing, because this is real people, real cars, and we think it's has even broader environmental and community implications than fleet-based car sharing. So we got a $1.7 million grant from the Federal Highway Administration to launch a 3-year study on peer-to-peer car sharing, and we launched that in Portland in February. So we'll be reporting back on how that's going, but we'll know very quickly in terms of the impact of peer-to-peer car sharing on people's driving behavior, and also on the people who are choosing not to own a car and just share someone else's car. And also, as we look at ways of enabling this behavior, obviously not sharing your car is easier than sharing your car, but it's going to have benefits: monetary, environmental, community, helping, making the world a better place, helping people. I think definitely in San Francisco, I think definitely in this room, we all want that. But at the same time, with this new tax on Airbnb and each of these things are deterrents to doing the right thing. And so I'm saddened to see the decision that's come in, and I hope that we can make more innovative and informed decisions to really make it easy to share and make it, I would like to see tax incentives for any sort of sharing behavior. And I think that's probably where it'll go in the future. But until we get that together, there's only a tax on Airbnb.
How can benefits of the sharing economy be spread broadly, reach into underserved communities, and what are you doing specifically?
When we start in a city such as San Francisco, we look at what makes the city unique and seek out experiences and personalities and guides for the site that can really tell that story of San Francisco to tourists and locals alike. So a couple of examples of that, there's a passionate street artist in the Mission who had offered tours to friends and family and people in the community. He'd really become an expert in Banksy street art. He discovered our platform and is now able to not only monetize and make money doing what he loves and what he'd already been doing, but sharing this expertise and knowledge well beyond his own insular community of family and friends. So we have tourists coming from Japan and France, and instead of just seeing Pier 39, they're also now venturing into the Mission, spending money at the local burrito shops and gaining knowledge about something that they now have become passionate about. And one other example is a homeless man who lives in the Tenderloin at a shelter. We met him volunteering in the Tenderloin and realized that there was a huge opportunity for people to educate themselves about homelessness in San Francisco, because it is something that the city, for better or for worse, is known for. And instead of ignoring that segment of town, because you don't typically think of it as a tourist destination, we wanted to see what were the strengths that it could bring as a tourism opportunity. And our guide, Milton, has now made enough money to buy a cell phone so that he can operate more of these tours. And it's spread to personalities such as the author Tim Ferriss, who has recommended it to all his friends, and the deputy mayor of Atlanta, who has come on that tour to inform his homelessness policy back in Atlanta. So we really see the reach of this, not only taking people into other underserved communities, but really redefining what tourism is. And it is such a huge moneymaker for the city. But then also we're now attracting locals and other people who wouldn't necessarily think to go on a tour or to pay for an experience to now pay for them.
We see a really wide variety of folks that are part of our TaskRabbit community. I mean, you might think often people do that college students would be the best TaskRabbits, and we would just get a bunch of college students to be out running around town doing errands. And that actually, from the very beginning, was never the case. It was the first big learning I had when I launched the business. We have stay-at-home moms that are out running their own errands anyway and don't mind picking things up for people. We have young professionals looking to supplement their incomes and nights and weekends. San Francisco is an expensive place to live, and if they can make a few extra bucks on the side to help supplement their rent, then all the better. We have this amazing group of retirees that love the idea of staying active, of helping other people in their community. So we look for a really wide variety of individuals to get involved in the network. One story I'll share is of a woman named Amy, and she's a real task poster here in San Francisco. And she posts on a monthly basis and hires a group of TaskRabbits to go out with her to the Tenderloin in San Francisco and to help feed the homeless. It's something that she's incredibly passionate about. And she utilizes the TaskRabbit network as a resource and to offer support in fulfilling that passion. So there's just story after story about the ways that we're engaging all levels of the community. And it's really exciting to see the type of community building that can happen when you connect people in a neighborhood.
You know, sharing isn't a new idea. It's been around for a long time. But something that all of our companies have in common is that we use technology, in our case is an online platform, that actually lowers the barrier of entry. So people across the socioeconomic spectrum can engage in this activity. In Airbnb's case, you don't need to have a pied-à-terre or a second home in a fancy condo building in this city. You can have an extra couch that you want to rent out, and you can find access to travelers from all over the world who, by the way, also don't have the resources to spend money on a $200 hotel bill, who want to stay on your couch. And that's really democratizing travel, not just access to travel, but also access to the tourism economy that flourishes in this city.
We try and emphasize the human aspect of this, whether it's on the website or whether it's through the iPhone app. A lot of people meet up and they exchange keys in person, and they start doing it that way until they get comfortable. Then other people use a device that we built called the Getaround car kit, and that lets you share your car more conveniently by letting the renter unlock their car with their smartphone. The keys are on the car, you go drive away. So even with that, we really try and connect the two people who are sharing, because a lot of people do accept rentals from the car, just with the car kit, and they may never meet the people they're sharing with. And so we do certain things to try and encourage, the two parties feeling they know each other, and I think Airbnb also does a really good job of that.
Yeah, that touches on a really interesting thing. I was wondering, how do cities, what role do they play in your rollout plans, and how important is community management to the process? And why don't we start with you, Jessica, on that one?
Definitely. So for us, we've chosen to launch city by city. And we feel that that's really important because it lets us take the time needed to build up a great community of people sharing cars. That lets us find great cars, educate the owners, educate the renters, and ensure there's the right balance and variety of cars. So if you look on the site in San Francisco, you'll literally see cars all over the place. And also, it's actually spread organically all over the Bay Area. So you're seeing car sharing happening in places that never happened before. We work with the city to see if there's any ways we can get out the word. We hope to work with existing programs or be added as an additional transportation solution. In general, we like to involve the city and city leaders in our announcement of coming to market, and it's been working really well. It's very, in the nature, it's collaborative.
Airbnb is a little bit different because Airbnb depends upon and grows from network effects. So we're already in over 19,000 cities throughout the world. It's really a movement. It's not driven by the company. We just provide the tools online, and local residents throughout the world decide they want to be a part of this movement and a part of Airbnb and list their homes on the site, and then local travelers all over the world decide they want to go somewhere and look for those homes on the site. So the amazing thing is that it's really driven by the global community. We just like to help that along by contributing to community events and meetups and educational experiences to help Airbnb hosts become better hosts. And quite often, actually, we have events where the travelers who are in town can attend. One such event is happening this Thursday. Airbnb hosts throughout the city. And actually, Airbnb travelers who live in San Francisco have nominated their favorite destinations, experiences, local businesses, and nonprofit organizations in their neighborhood. And we're going to be presenting the Airbnb map guide to San Francisco based on this. In terms of the role that cities play in this rollout, I think the biggest role that a city can play would be to make compliance with the existing laws and regulations more clear and more easy for local residents. London, for example, is doing a really great job of this in anticipation of the Olympics, and that's where I happen to be heading next week because they've run out of hotel rooms, and they realized that the whole purpose of the Olympics was to create economic development in some of the most underserved neighborhoods in the city, and they're not getting that. So we're going to be working collaboratively to come up with a solution for how to solve that problem. And they've created a wonderful website with information for not just Airbnb hosts, but anyone who wants to let out out their room to an Olympic guest that very clearly states what you need to do to be compliant and gives you some tips on safety and security, et cetera.
So Jay, tell us what existing city initiatives, the sharing economy working group will interface with or connect with, and how does it fit in with existing sort of strategic goals and plans of the city?
Our city has issued a goal for 2020 being mission-free, carbon neutral, and that's something that when you think about the economic impact of these new business models, it can contribute quite greatly to that. I'm going to answer the question a little bit differently. I've been inspired by this space considerably, and if you think about it, there's a lot more opportunity. You think about there's cars, there's so many assets that we have in our society. We as a city own a lot of assets, right? We have our buildings, we have our cubicles, we've got museums, we own golf courses, we have zoos. We have so much that we have that's actually
the public. It's our property, right?
That's a good point. Yeah, we're just stewards. Yes. And so going back to my original statement.
Sorry, Jay.
That's a very good point. We're just stewards of these resources, and they're underutilized resources often. So how do we actually improve access to those resources? What can we do to further that? So I think there's a lot to learn from this space that can be applied to the public comments.
Yeah. So that's our last question, and I wanna close real quickly just by saying, like, our view at Shareable about technology is it is not an inanimate object that controls our destiny. It is something that we decide and what we want. And so I feel like this has been a very constructive conversation about that's a start about what kind of society we want to have, what kind of people that we want to have. And I want to thank Mayor Lee, Spur, our awesome panelists, and Jay for a very rewarding panel. Thank you.